Throughout the timeline of human civilization, aging has carried meanings beyond wrinkles, gray hair, or frailty. In ancient tribes, the elders were the keepers of stories, wisdom, and spiritual connections. They were not discarded or forgotten, but revered, consulted, and respected. History teaches us that aging is not a decline, but a transformation, an evolution of presence, perspective, and power. In societies like ancient China, Confucian teachings ingrained the concept of filial piety, where elders were honored not out of obligation, but gratitude. Their life experience was seen as a treasure chest of knowledge and insight that could guide future generations. Similarly, Native American cultures did not place their elderly in homes or hide them from sight. Instead, they were storytellers, advisors, and spiritual guides, deeply involved in shaping the moral compass of their people. Even in classical Greece, philosophers like Socrates and Plato reached the peaks of their intellectual contributions well into old age, teaching us that the mind often deepens and sharpens as the body matures. History reveals that wisdom, not youth, has often been the engine of meaningful change. In the Roman Empire, senators were typically elder statesmen, chosen not for their energy but their reasoned thinking and lived experience. Cicero wrote extensively on the value of old age, defending it as a stage of life filled with dignity and purpose. He argued that old age frees one from the desires of the flesh, allowing a clearer focus on truth, justice, and philosophy. The Renaissance, too, saw aging differently. While youth was celebrated in art, the minds that guided the era, Da Vinci, Galileo, Michelangelo, worked long past what we now consider retirement age. Aging, then, was not a decline but an ascent to mastery. Even in battle, history is rich with elder warriors. The samurai of feudal Japan, many of whom served well into old age, taught that discipline and mental focus were more powerful than brute strength. They embraced aging as a refinement of their skill, not a limitation of their ability. And consider the sages of India, rishis who lived in forests, dedicating their elder years to meditation and spiritual pursuit. Their age brought them closer to enlightenment, not irrelevance. These patterns from history reveal a vital truth. Aging has not always meant retreat or decay. It has often meant ascendancy, responsibility, and deeper value. The modern world, however, has largely lost touch with this reverence. The Industrial Revolution ushered in a new kind of society, fast-paced, youth-focused, productivity-obsessed. Older people were increasingly seen as obsolete, not because they lost wisdom, but because machines didn't require mentorship. The collective memory began to devalue age, and a cultural shift emerged where youth became synonymous with success and old age with irrelevance. But that wasn't the natural way of human understanding. It was a side effect of an economy-centered world. And even then, the most impactful leaders and thinkers of the 20th century emerged in their later years. Winston Churchill was in his 60s during World War II and became a symbol of unwavering strength. Nelson Mandela was released from prison at 71 and went on to unify a divided nation. Mother Teresa continued her humanitarian work into her late 80s. These lives tell us that aging is not a wall, but a doorway, one that opens into the most important rooms of character, legacy, and influence. Scientific advancements also align with this truth. Neuroscience today tells us that crystallized intelligence, our ability to use experience and accumulated knowledge, peaks later in life. This suggests that decision-making, empathy, and long-term thinking improve as we age. In contrast to the myth that everything declines with age, many faculties simply shift in purpose. Reaction time may slow, but patience strengthens. Physical agility may wane, but strategic thinking flourishes. History teaches us to reframe aging, not as a subtraction, but as a transmutation. We don't lose who we are. We become more fully who we were always meant to be. The ancient traditions, the spiritual disciplines, and the lived examples of our ancestors all converge to remind us that age adds depth. In communities across Africa, griots, elder oral historians, keep the cultural memory alive. Without them, generations would forget who they were. In Judaism, age is associated with a crown of glory. In Islam, older individuals are seen as deserving of immense respect, their prayers more weighted, their presence more blessed. Aging is not merely physical, it is spiritual, social, and deeply human. To ignore what history tells us about aging is to forget who we are as a species. We are not designed to worship youth alone. We are built to grow, to deepen, and to pass on a torch that becomes brighter as it moves from one hand to the next. In tribal Africa, when an elder dies, it is said that a library has burned. This is no exaggeration. Every aged person carries a vault of life lessons, silent triumphs, internal wars, and deep love stories. They carry the nuances of survival and the poetry of perseverance. History pleads with us to listen to them. We must reclaim that understanding. The stories of aged sages, philosophers, warriors, leaders, healers, and artists whisper across time. Do not fear age, embrace it. You are not less, you are more. You are not behind, you are ahead. With every year, you gain another layer of truth, another page of narrative, another reason to be revered rather than ignored. Even the word Senate comes from the Latin senex, meaning old man. Governance itself, in its earliest form, was built on the foundation of wisdom gained through age. History is not silent on this. It shouts it from the ruins of Rome, the temples of Asia, the deserts of Africa, and the libraries of Europe. Aging is not the end of relevance. It is its beginning. We must learn again what we once knew by instinct, that growing old is not a tragedy. It is the most powerful unfolding of life, its elf dot. As we dive deeper into the human story, we see that aging is not just a personal journey. It is a societal mirror. How a culture treats its elderly reflects the depth of its values. In societies where wisdom is prized, aging is a crown. In cultures obsessed with superficial beauty and speed, aging becomes something to hide. Yet history continues to expose the truth. The greatest breakthroughs, revolutions, philosophies, and acts of compassion have often come not from the young, but from those who have lived long enough to see the patterns, to connect the dots, to recognize what truly matters. From the towering intellect of Benjamin Franklin, who was 70 when he helped draft the Declaration of Independence, to the spiritual depth of Mahatma Gandhi, who led a nation with peaceful resistance in his later years, aging has time and again proven to be a source of unstoppable power. The elderly have always been more than just survivors of time. They are its interpreters. They help us see what cannot be seen in the fast rush of youth. They teach us about cycles, patience, acceptance, resilience, and grace. They carry the emotional vocabulary needed to endure heartbreak and still believe in love. They know what it means to lose everything and yet rebuild quietly, brick by brick. And yet modernity often rushes past these lessons in its hunger for what's new. Social media celebrates the viral, the trendy, the immediate. But history reminds us that the enduring is what shapes civilizations. An elder's quiet counsel is more potent than 1,000 tweets. A weathered face speaks more truth than any filter. What we forget is that the stability we enjoy today, our institutions, freedoms, and technologies, was built on the backs of those who aged through wars, depressions, pandemics, and revolutions. Their bones bear the cost of the comfort we now enjoy. To age is to earn a place in the archives of human achievement, and history is full of those who made their mark not in youth, but in age. Laura Ingalls Wilder published her first book at 65, Inspiring Generations. Colonel Sanders founded KFC in his 60s, showing that entrepreneurship has no expiration date. The list is endless. History does not reward only the swift, it honors the steady. And as the world grows older demographically, with populations aging across continents, this historical wisdom becomes more relevant than ever. Aging populations are not burdens. They are resources, reservoirs of stability, judgment, and continuity. In times of crisis, we turn not to the impulsive, but to the seasoned. This is not coincidence. It is encoded in our collective consciousness. Even in the arts, many creators reach their creative peak in later life. Beethoven composed some of his greatest symphonies when his body was in decline. Tolstoy's later works carried deeper spiritual force than his earlier triumphs. Georgia O'Keeffe painted with trembling hands but a clearer soul. Age purified their expression. The brush may have slowed, but the vision sharpened. Aging, as history shows, is an amplifier, not a limiter, of creativity and meaning. This understanding also finds echoes in science. The field of gerontology teaches us that older individuals often experience greater emotional stability, increased altruism, and a heightened capacity for empathy. These are not just chemical benefits. They are the evolutionary rewards of experience. They are what make communities thrive. A society that values its elders is one that plants seeds for a wise future. History has never looked kindly upon cultures that discard their elderly. The collapse of civilizations has often followed a devaluation of wisdom. The Mayans, the Greeks, even parts of the Roman Empire faltered when short-term pleasure was placed above generational guidance. The erosion of elder respect erodes the bridge between past and future. The old are not anchors holding us back. They are lighthouses keeping us on course. They help us remember where we came from so we know where we're going. And in our personal lives, our grandparents, mentors, aging parents, and neighbors often serve this role without fanfare. They cook meals with old recipes not found in books. They share stories not stored online. They love without terms and give without demands. They remind us of simpler truths, that laughter is medicine, that silence is powerful, that love requires patience, and that time is our greatest teacher. These are not lessons you learn at 25. These are truths you grow into. And the older you get, the more you realize that the chase for youth is empty if it comes at the cost of wisdom. History shows that every stage of life has its beauty, but the latter stages hold a deeper kind of glow, the one that comes from inside, the one not dimmed by years but brightened by perspective. Every wrinkle holds a memory. Every slow step has walked 1,000 fast ones before it. Every gray hair is a thread of gold in the fabric of human endurance. And the most powerful civilizations have always known this. In times of turmoil, kings turn to old sages. In moments of uncertainty, armies listen to aged generals. In periods of innovation, even the youngest inventors stood on the shoulders of the giants before them. The irony is clear. While we idolize youth, it is age that teaches us how to live well. What history teaches us about aging is not just to accept it, it's to embrace it as a gift. To understand that each year lived is a medal, not a mark. To recognize that our elders are not outdated. They are upgraded, refined, and timeless. We must learn again to honor them, to listen more than we speak, to learn more than we teach, to cherish more than we consume. Because the real wealth of humanity lies not in its gold or data, but in the stories and strength of those who have lived the longest. History urges us to return to this truth. To build a future where aging is not feared but welcomed, not hidden but celebrated, where we measure value not in speed or trends but in character and contribution. Aging is the longest journey any of us will ever take, and history, if we listen, becomes the guidebook we need for every step of the way. It tells us that aging is not the fading of the flame, but the refining of its light, and in that light we find the deepest meaning of being human. The journey of aging, viewed through the lens of history, is not one of loss but of accumulation, of memory, of perspective, of soul. As we move through the ages of human civilization, a pattern becomes unmistakably clear. Every culture that honored its elders thrived, not just in survival, but in identity, stability, and continuity. The wisdom of those who have lived long does not merely inform decisions. It gives them weight, integrity, and direction. In a world spinning faster every day, the elderly become the grounding roots, anchoring us to what truly matters. History whispers to us through dusty scrolls, faded photographs, and cracked voices. Cherish those who have walked the road before you, for they know where it leads. Even in literature and myth, the elder archetype stands tall, not as a passive observer, but as a necessary guide. The wise man on the mountain, the crone with secrets, the grandfather with a lesson. These characters have been present in every culture's storytelling tradition. They are never portrayed as obsolete. They are the key holders, the ones who unlock the protagonist's growth. Why? Because age is associated with transformation. Aged eyes see things not visible to the hurried glance of youth. Their slower pace is not a weakness. It is a deliberate gaze that captures life's deeper truths. Think of the mentors in history, Socrates, Laozi, Confucius. Not only did they shape the thoughts of their own time, but their philosophies echo through centuries. Not because they were loud, but because they were timeless, and age gave them that echo. There's a sacred rhythm in the way wisdom accumulates. It's not taught in classrooms or clicked in digital feeds. It's lived. And lived wisdom does not fade. It becomes luminous. In recent years, some societies have begun to awaken to this again. Movements advocating for conscious aging or productive aging echo the old truth that growing older is not a setback, it's a second bloom. It's a return to one's essence. Free from the performance of youth, the elder becomes their truest self. In historical communities, older members were often the ones to initiate young ones into adulthood. Not with exams, but with stories, silence, ritual, and reflection. They understood that maturity is not about knowledge, but about depth. The elder's role was not merely advisory, it was spiritual. They held the map when others got lost. And in this chaotic modern world, we need those maps more than ever. But instead of seeking the aged hand, we scroll endlessly, hoping to find meaning in motion. History corrects this mistake. It tells us that to find clarity, we must go back. Back to the hearth where elders once sat. Back to the porch where grandmothers spoke. Back to the fire where wisdom was passed not in files, but in fables. The most powerful lessons about resilience, love, suffering, forgiveness, and purpose often come not from textbooks, but from someone who has walked through storms and come out with a quiet smile. And the legacy of such people lives on not in statues, but in hearts. Think of the historical letters written by aged leaders to their descendants. These were not filled with business advice or economic theories. They were filled with reflections, with regrets transformed into wisdom, with gentle urgings to live with purpose. Thomas Jefferson, nearing the end of his life, wrote about freedom with more passion than when he was young. His age had not dimmed his fire. It had refined it into gold. Even in the final acts of life, history shows us that greatness can emerge. In Japan, there's a word, ikigai, meaning a reason for being. Elders in Okinawa live long not just because of diet or genes, but because they are needed, they are respected, they are engaged, and so they thrive. This simple yet profound truth echoes across the centuries. People don't die because they get old. They die when they feel unnecessary. History tells us that the opposite is also true. People flourish when they are valued, and age, instead of being a burden, becomes a torch. A civilization that gives that torch to its elders ensures the path stays lit. It builds bridges across generations. It grows not in cycles of rebellion and reinvention, but in continuity and evolution. Even nature, our oldest teacher, shows this rhythm. The oldest trees in the forest are not the weakest, they are the most stable. Their roots run deeper, their branches shelter more life. The seasons may change, but they remain. Likewise, human beings as they age often move from striving to serving, from ambition to meaning, from survival to significance. And this transition is not a retreat, it is the apex of the journey. It is where life makes the most sense, but it requires a society wise enough to listen, humble enough to learn, and grateful enough to remember. We must ask ourselves, what future are we building if we ignore the past that lives among us? If we silence those who've lived through world wars, migrations, revolutions, inventions, and transformations, then we are severing our own roots. The wisdom of history is not just found in books. It is found in the weathered face across the dinner table, in the trembling voice that still sings lullabies, in the hands that once built, fed, protected, and prayed. Every moment with an elder is a moment with history, and we must treat it as sacred. History teaches us to expand our definition of success, to stop measuring life by speed and volume, and start measuring it by depth and resonance. Aging brings the chance to live in resonance, with values, with truth, with others. It is a time when we are no longer distracted by illusions and finally begin to see life as it is. Not a race, but a story. Not a ladder, but a dance. And in that dance, the elders carry the rhythm. They move slower, yes, but they move wiser. They do not need to be the loudest, they are the clearest. In a world losing its memory, they are our living archives. And every time we sit with them, speak with them, or simply listen, we touch the beating heart of humanity itself. History does not lie. It has recorded over and over again that aging is not the end, it is the return to the beginning. It is the blooming of the inner self. It is the final masterpiece of the soul. And when we honor it, we don't just uplift the elderly, we uplift ourselves. We reclaim the beauty of being human. We restore the balance of time, and in doing so, we ensure that future generations will one day age with dignity, with value, and with the echo of all those who came before. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories and life-changing insights. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment that could inspire your journey. Your support means everything. Thank you for being part of this community.